For this week's Patreon video, we are going to bring you the beauty, the marvel that is Deebo Samuel, MVP Bo. I don't care if you make a face, David. I love it. It's great.
It's not good.
It's fantastic. We're gonna give you 4 plays of Deebo running the ball and 1 play of what he does to the defense, even when he's not running the ball, for a total of 5 plays. Yes, David, I've got it. It's okay.
All right.
Let's go to the first one, David. Play 1, first quarter, 5:39. First and 10. The Niners are down 7. They are getting into the red area. They need a touchdown at this point to keep pace, and they give it to old Mr. Deebo Samuel on an outside zone play. It's a play that made Mike Zimmer very, very mad and caused him to say some not choice things post-game about George Kittle and perhaps his propensity to hold. But this is just an outside zone play and this is really the staple play that the Niners run with Deebo Samuel, with that little reverse pivot handoff from the quarterback, gets him to the edge, and it is 6 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key difference, right? The handoff is really the main thing here that differentiates this from just basically any other version of outside zone that they have, right? And we're going to see another play later on where they do a more typical handoff to Deebo, where he kind of goes underneath the quarterback there, and you get that more sort of traditional setup. So they do use him on runs like this, but this is the one that's been most effective for them. And so, yeah, you're basically getting, the motion here to set up and get you an extra lead blocker. So, and if we go back really quick to the sideline, the thing that they've liked to do with this particular run as well is they run it into the condensed, or like the short side of the formation, right? So you can see prior to the motion there's no receivers aligned on that side. It's just the tight end on the end. Sometimes they will get a receiver over there to start rather than the motion player that you get with Jeff Wilson, and they'll just align him really tight to the tight end and get to it that way. But it's the same effect, right? Where basically you're getting what amounts to 2 guys up to near the line of scrimmage that are kind of tight end like, and then you're getting Juice as the lead back there, and then you've got this kind of reverse handoff to Deebo to get around and make sure that he can take that really wide path to get the edge, because that's where they really want to hit with this one. And if we get back to the end zone here, now you can see, of course, the holding in all its glory. You get to see Kittle get away with one there. But yeah, I mean, this has been, they just are consistently able to get the edge with this play, and the ways that they kind of set it up and get there. We're going to see a couple of them from this game, but that's been kind of the most impressive thing.
A couple of things about the play other than the holding. One is just going to be the block of Jeff Wilson. This is a running back who is pretty good as a blocker out in space. Like, he does his job, and he's doing it up. And I mean, like, he throws him down to the ground like that. That's just a running back saying, "That's okay. I'm just going to toss you, and it's going to be fine." You got the backside. You've got Trent Williams, kind of playing patty cake with 2 players on the backside right there. But then you get Brandon Ayuk. And once we let this play run and we go back to the sideline view, you're going to see Brandon Ayuk and Patrick Peterson. And I think Brandon Ayuk figured out how to get more snaps, because Peterson is going to go into his chest. And like, I mean, this is a 2-point takedown. This is wonderful. He just look at that, drops the hips, gets him over. I mean, that's gorgeous. It's beautiful. He's not just a wide receiver. He is, he's going to take up Frank Gore with maybe some mixed martial arts very, very soon. He can do it all.
And Peterson was pissed. Yeah, I think really quick, getting back to the Jeff Wilson block, I think is good. I mean, this is part of why this play is successful for the 49ers is everybody on that side of the Vikings defense kind of loses contain in some way, right? So that corner that Wilson ends up getting to, he has sideline contain here, meaning he needs to be the widest player on the field. And you can see, of course, that is not true. He tries to undercut it there and kind of take a chance at being able to get underneath the block and make a play that way. But Wilson does a good job redirecting, sealing him inside. And so that's what really opens up the sideline down the field. But then you can even see, I mean, you've got Barr, that's the edge player over here. He gets into Juice's chest and kind of does a decent job there. But again, he needs to maintain that outside leverage and make sure that he can get to this easier. And he seems a little bit more preoccupied with kind of getting into juice and getting some movement backwards into the backfield there than actually keeping that assignment. And then, of course, Kittle gets away with one a little bit here. We'll give it to him, but that's the other one, right? So, I mean, Kendrick's there. All of the guys that should have this kind of outside leverage to potentially be in a spot to make this tackle kind of lose their job, and that's why this play works.
So then we get to the second play. We are now in the second quarter. It is 12:42. It is 1st and 10 on the play, and we're going to see not just an outside zone from Deebo Samuel. Now we're going to see a trap play. And for those of you who have forgotten what a trap play is from maybe the Jim Harbaugh days, it's basically when you leave one of the defensive linemen unblocked and then hit him in the ear hole with another player that's coming right down the line. And in this case, that is number 90. Number 90 is unblocked, and he gets hit in the ear hole. And Deebo Samuel is able to make something out of this play because he's got the speed, but it was blocked up nicely for him to potentially get even more.
Yeah, so going back to the sideline here, you can see the type of setup, right? So this is kind of the formation where if you just imagine instead of Jeff Wilson coming across in motion there, they just have Juwan Jennings aligned really tight next to Kittle there, but you end up in the same sort of look, right? And so they're showing that to the defense, and they're getting Kittle, on the same side there on the weak side of the offense. But then they're going to give him a different blocking scheme, right, to work with. And yeah, I think this is one where Deebo's so used to getting on the edge with these, not doing a ton of necessarily getting up inside, but this is actually blocked up really well in the trap. And if he cuts this inside, there's a lot of space there. So you can see right here as you get the trap block right on 90 that's coming across there, does very good there. And then Trent Williams getting up on Barr again, and then there's that lane, right? So if you just kind of look at that spot, because the other thing, the guy that really should be fitting into that gap, into that space, is held by Jeff Wilson, and that's Harrison Smith, right? So Harrison Smith would be the guy that's kind of fitting up into that space, but he has to respect Jeff Wilson coming out in kind of flaring out into the flat there. And so that really opens up the room that you have inside, and this is one that Deebo just kind of misses it. So he's not full-on conversion to running back just yet.
Now we get to the third play, and this is in the third quarter. It's both of the next plays, third and fourth play we're going to show you, are both on the same drive. It's the opening drive of the third quarter. This is a 2nd and 5 play. This is effectively a pin and pull, where you see Ayuk doing what Ayuk does now at this point, which is block defensive ends. Doesn't matter. Put anyone in front of him. He's going to block him. And he is basically the pin down block. And then you've got someone, Tom Compton, pulling around with another lead blocker. In this case, it's going to be Jeff Wilson. And they get hat on hat out there on the edge. And it just parts. It parts. It's a huge lane for Deebo Samuel, who just runs over people there at the end of the run. It's not just going to be outside zone, but this is a kind of an outside zone-like play. It's going to have a lot of the same features of an outside zone. It just gets Deebo to the edge, gets some athletic players in space, and allows him to do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, for most players on this play, it essentially is outside zone, right? So you're just giving a few blocks some better angles, right? So rather than having Juice there and Ayuk kind of go wide and get the blocks on the secondary players, they're going to come down on that defensive end and linebacker there, and then you get Wilson and Compton that kind of pull out and get those wide players and support players. They're going to be coming there. And so, but for everybody else on the backside, right, everybody from Brunskill on back to Kittle, this is outside zone. This is nothing different there. And formationally, though, the other thing you see with this one is it is a little bit kind of more of a tendency breaker. Like I mentioned at the first play, they've been running really a lot of the Deebo's runs into the closed side of the formation, right, which would be if they ran it left here into Kittle's side. So they show, again, a little bit of a tweak and something a little bit different formationally, a little bit different blocking-wise, but you get that same handoff action there, still looking to get Deebo out on the edge. And, he's able to obviously pick up a big run despite, Juice nearly blows it here. He doesn't get a great block on the linebacker there, and he has a chance to get him in the backfield. But Beyond that, everybody else does a fantastic job, and that's how you get somebody out into the secondary, right? Running like this.
It seems like every one of these plays has a block where you're just like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's just someone eating lunch. That's just someone putting him down. And that's Laken Tomlinson on this play. Like, look, he's running in space, which is pretty impressive for a guy his size, and then he just crunches him. Like it's just like once he gets his body weight on him, he just collapses and falls on him, and the linebacker cannot do anything about it, and he's just face down in the dirt. It's wonderful. And then Trent Williams did something very similar, with just look at his hands, how he just swipes down the hands of 96, grabs him, pulls him down, done, toast. That's it.
Yeah,
it's great.
I mean, Compton getting out there too. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of very good blocks. So you get Compton coming out, and not an easy block for a big lineman in space on somebody like Harrison Smith, right? I mean, getting out there, Harrison Smith wants to, again, kind of touched on it on the first touchdown run there, but these guys for the Vikings, right, wanting to keep outside leverage. So it's not like Compton's taking him somewhere that he doesn't want to go necessarily, but it's still, an elusive player, a much better athlete than he is in space with nobody to help him out. And he still, makes sure to cover him up and kick him out and make sure that he doesn't have an opportunity to shed and make a play on this. So you get that. I mean, you get Ayuk's block that you mentioned on the D end, not an easy block for him. So, I mean, yeah, pretty much across the board here. Juice is the only one that kind of loses it. But at least he loses to the right place, not getting beat across his face where the linebacker is going to have an easier time making a tackle here. So, yeah, just great execution. And then you see Deebo getting out doing what he does.
Yeah, maybe Brunskill can give some tips to Joey Sly on how to run quickly downfield and not bust your hammy. But now we get to another play here. This is the fourth play, third quarter, 11:35, second and goal from the 3. And we're going to return to the play that Deebo's been running over and over and over again. It's just an outside zone with that pivot handoff. And this time it's going to go to the left for a touchdown.
Yeah, back to the same sort of look as the early ones, right? You're getting the condensed formation. We're running it that way. This time we have Jennings aligned there and not getting any motion. But otherwise, this is the same play, right? So we're getting, and again, it's just great blocks on the play side, right, to allow him to get that space. I mean, you see Trent Williams and what he's able to do on this reach block to get to number 90 there.
Yeah,
really
I mean that's what jumps out right away. Like him and Kittle together, the space that he covers at the snap, that Trent Williams covers at the snap, it's incredible. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how far. I mean, Kittle's taken a wide split, so you can see how much more space there is between him and Trent Williams compared to all of the other offensive linemen together, right? That gap is a little bit wider. So he's taken that wide split, and that takes the defensive end out who wants to play inside shade on him. So it's a big reach for Williams to be able to get over there. And yeah, just does a great job. Obviously gets some help from Kittle to slow that guy up, but I mean, he gets fully around him and gets that sealed off. And then Kittle, does enough getting up to the linebacker, right? He gets his help on his defensive lineman there, gets up to Kendricks, and is able to cover him up enough and keep him off balance to where even though Kendricks ends up with a shot at the tackle here, he's just not really in position to give a great effort at it, right? He's kind of off balance. And so it's going to be a tough look for him. And then it's just Deebo, running over a safety at the goal line.
Yeah, what I think is interesting about this too is that it looks like the Vikings are matched up with an extra safety here. And part of that may be because when you look at the personnel package, I mean, you've got Jennings in there, you've got Deebo in there. It looks like effectively like 11 personnel because you've got Ayuk out there too. And then you see Deebo motion into the backfield. And so because they're trying to respect the passing threat at this point, they've got an extra safety in there, and that just makes life a little easier for everyone to come in and block. And then you've got another running back making another block. You've got Elijah Mitchell out there. Gumbo is his nickname. California Cajun, Gumbo, both are acceptable. And he's out there blocking too as a running back. I mean, this is the bully ball, the positionless football. This is what it looks like. And they did it with a high degree of effectiveness to put some points up on Minnesota. And this is a team with some good players. They've got some issues on defense. They haven't been good against the run all season, but it wasn't necessarily a given that they were going to be able to run down their throats. So now we get to the fifth play. This is back in the second quarter, 2:40 to go. It's a 2nd and 6 play. Deebo does not get the ball in this case, but he does motion back into the backfield. And you're going to see him do that same run action that he typically does when he goes outside zone, but he doesn't get the ball. And look at what happens to the 3 defenders on his side of the field just because of his motion.
Yeah, so we're getting the exact same formation, right? This time we do get the juice motion. And so everything at this point is setting up. And I mean, teams got to be conditioned, right, to see Deebo in the backfield and think that he's likely going to be getting the ball. And so especially when they show the same sort of motion action that they've been doing on those handoffs to him, the defense has got to be aware of it. And so this is just, I mean, it only ends up being essentially a 4-yard gain because of some other blocks that are there. But you can see the impact having Deebo back there has on this defense because, you see basically the backside 3 defenders there. So you've got Barr, you've got the corner to that side, you've got Kendricks there that are all kind of held. And they're just kind of hanging out on that side because you've got the action with Juice and Deebo both going that direction. And so, it just kind of freezes those guys enough to where you should have an advantage, right? Play side. Now it's just the backside is less of a concern. You're kind of blocking those guys without blocking them. And then it's just kind of on, the main set of offensive linemen there who are blocking play side to be able to get those blocks. They do a decent job. I mean, obviously 4-yard gain is solid in this situation. The 2nd and 6 sets them up with a 3rd and short. So not, the hugest play, but you see the impact that Deebo is able to have even when he's not getting the ball.
So overall, this is Shanahan doing, what is really at the foundation of Shanahan's philosophy on offense. It is to show a lot of different things and find creative ways to get into your staple runs, whether it be outside zone or a trap play or pin and pull, which is just basically outside zone, but with, a couple of gap things to make some angles easier. So overall, it's a lot of window dressing. It's a lot of people playing in different positions and being asked to do different things to get to, your base runs, your staple runs that the team executes really, really well. And there are other constraint plays in there that he throws in there. We didn't show the wind back play, but that's a tendency breaker when people start to overcommit to outside zone, so you don't crash on the backside. I mean, there's so much that Shanahan is throwing at teams right now, and it's a big reason that they're winning, that they're succeeding, is they're putting the ball really on the shoulders of the part of the team that is consistently good, and it's players like Trent Williams, it's Laken Tomlinson, and Deebo Samuel, and now Elijah Mitchell, Gumbo himself. So overall, that's what's fueling the Niners now rise into playoff contention.
I see you trying to get another athletic headline, these nicknames.
Yeah.
I see you trying to get
you know what? It worked once. It worked once. We can do it again.
It only took how many years of build up to get there?
The barnacle.
I think
that's going to be our legacy. The barnacle. Jesus.
Oh, man. I hope that's not all. But yeah, I think the run game obviously has been clicking for all the reasons you mentioned there, and just having so many things. That's when this offense is at its best, right? Is when you have these just kind of layered looks and things that build on each other, and you give the defense all of this extra stuff to think about, but it's really not that much different for the offense, right? So, I mean, you've got to make sure you're on top of the formations and the motions and shifts and stuff that they're doing. But ultimately, like as long as everybody is aligned correctly and knows where they're going, you're running a core play that they've run hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times probably, right? So, it allows you to do something that's relatively simple for you and appear very complex for the defense, which is always going to be to your advantage.
And maybe we'll get to this on Thursday's show, but these are staple runs and these are concepts that you could easily drop Trey Lance into. If you're thinking about what comes next, if you're thinking about what some of these plays look like when now all of a sudden you've got Deebo holding 3 players and you're getting out gapped, but then you also have an extra gap to account for because the quarterback can run. Now things begin to look incredibly more diverse for the 49ers. But that does it for this week's Patreon video looking at Deebo Samuel and the run game. Thanks for the beer. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, go Niners.